So I'm on this one. I'm going to cover a topic that I think it's been an issue for a long time, thousands of years. I don't know, ever since we've been fighting. But I think that there's a component to this that is. It really just depends on what you're trying to accomplish with your martial art. So. Basically what this is going to come down to is that I have some notes that I'm going to refer to occasionally, so if I'm looking away, don't be weirded out by that, but I just want to make sure I cover it well, and I've decided to start putting things together a little bit more thoroughly. That I sometimes get questions after the fact, and I'm thinking, well, I covered that, but I sometimes gloss over stuff that I already assumed to know, and I think, it's one of those things. So I'm trying to be a little more thorough here and actually help keep it more brief, these vlogs. So this one, it comes down to a topic I would call prepared fighting versus unprepared fighting. And I feel like this is a conversation that's been going on forever, and it's really a point of disagreement between different groups, different types of training, and it's really, in my opinion, it's one of the primary separation points between things like people who focus on combatives, self-protection, self-defense, versus people who focus on martial arts proper. A lot of times martial arts tend to focus on prepared fighting. What do I mean by prepared fighting? Prepared fighting is that you and another person know you're going to fight, and you square off, or you duel, or it's agreed that you're going to do this. And I think that that's been born out of the history of martial arts. It's a thing that has gone on for thousands of years. People have historically brought combat into a realm of public use as a means of restoring honor and defending their name and all of these things. Even the concept of a battle, an actual warring battle like the samurai or whatever other things. Right now we have Navy SEALs, whatever. Most of that is what would fall under agreed upon or prepared combat. And when you talk about that, it doesn't mean that there aren't facets that you are unprepared for. It means that, generally speaking, you're engaged, and that you're either going to be killed or try to kill, or you are defending yourself or you're not. A schoolyard fight is a prepared fight in most cases. What else we got? So unprepared fighting is going to be like an ambush. You're walking down the street and somebody jacks you from behind. Unprepared fighting is the most difficult thing, because you literally have no concept it's going to happen, and then you get hit, and it's obviously difficult to prepare for, because even in a classroom setting, what's going to happen is you're going to say, okay, now we're going to practice getting hit from behind. Okay, so you get this practice of getting hit from behind. Even when you don't know what the attack is going to be, you still have some concept that it's going to happen. So you never truly get unprepared fighting, in my opinion, at least in most schools, because the goal here is to develop skills, and usually skills are developed from the standpoint of having knowledge that you're going to develop them before you start. So unprepared skills are a lot more difficult to identify and a lot more difficult to isolate, to train, because even after the first time it happens, you now are prepared. You like know it's going to happen. So I ran into this way early on in my training. I would do these things, habits, maybe instincts, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, reactions, where I would be like, oh, I'm gonna train this thing, and because I always do X and I really want to do Y, I'm going to train Y. And what I found is that no matter how much I trained Y, when I was startled or surprised, I still responded with X. And that led me to another method of training. And everybody's got their own X. I can't prescribe training for X because I don't know what it is in every individual. But what I do know is in myself. The more that I pay attention to myself and those things that I do that suck, then I can start to tweak them. And what I discovered worked pretty well was to take X as my starting point, do X, and figure out how to undo it. What does that mean? So, for example, if I catch something I don't really ever want to catch, I just start from the catch point and immediately figure out a way to put that into a perspective of something I can actually use and do. It doesn't reinforce my catch because I don't try to do it out of reaction. I just start from where whatever that thing is, my X, finishes. So if it's a catch and I go, whatever, or twitch, if that's my twitch, then I'm just going to start there. I'm not going to magnify it. I'm just going to start from, if my response is to go like this, I'm going to start from this position and I'm going to go into it, or I'm going to go from this and figure out another way to process through that and move away from whatever it is that's the problem. And try to get to what I would refer to as set points. A set point is this thing that, okay, shit goes wrong, right? You get hit, you fail, sometimes you screw up, sometimes you slip, sometimes the other guy gets lucky and he cracks you upside the head. Okay, so you aren't 100% successful. In the martial arts, we often think of ourselves as the protagonist, but in this case, we're losing. And we're losing, and we're getting our butt beat up, and the first thing people want to do is they want to start going back to caveman crap. And what I tell my guys and what we work on is, how do you recover? Because if you go to caveman crap, you're just adding more chaos to the situation. If you find these points of recovery from as many different positions as you can, so that you're able to start working your way out. So, for example, I'm not huge for going to the ground voluntarily. Some Silat systems, that's their bread and butter. They look phenomenal, it's awesome, that's great, whatever. I'm not going to do that. That's just not who I am. That's not what I teach. But what I do teach is, okay, you're on the ground. How are you going to now protect yourself? And then how are you going to get back up? Because if we assume weapons and we assume multiple opponents, you have no business jumping around on the ground. You need to get your ass up and you need to protect yourself. Mobility is life, and that means not moving around on the ground more than you have to. If you're going to be on the ground, do something completely destructive and then get back up. And so that's kind of our MO. And so, in these ambush situations, they're probably the shittiest, and I mean, out of history, I feel like the duel is the easiest to prepare for. It's the most logical. It's the way we can approach training, and it totally makes sense historically. And I don't have any problem with doing that. I have a problem with only doing that. An example that I personally try to implement is that I really I'll play around with knife dueling, but I really, really try to focus my own personal training on empty hand against weapons. I got a long way to go. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not some master on the mountain. I never have been. I don't care if I ever am. I really just want to continue to get improved. I just want to continue to improve. And so for me, that's a way to practice being unprepared. Prepared to me would be to level the playing field, or even better yet, to have the upper hand. And I don't really see that makes sense from a training perspective. So I try not to do it. In an ambush situation, people always ask me, "Hey man, what do you do when you get hit from behind?" Well, you get hit. It's not a question of what you're going to do about the hit. That's done. That's happened. It's an ambush. The best thing you can do is to practice things like situational awareness and environmental awareness and recovery, because recovery to me is the key component to an ambush. Most of the time, if it's an ambush, it means you weren't aware situationally or environmentally, and so and that's kind of a reality. We don't run around 100% of the time in these red things. Now we can turn those on and off based on the day and the location and what's happening, but generally speaking, it's not 100%. So, an example of situational awareness and preparedness is a big thing for me. So, my weapons training for myself is, okay, how do I use a grocery bag, a plastic grocery bag? That's one of my main flexible weapons tools lately that I'm messing around with, because frankly, I'm more likely to have that than any other thing flexible in my hands at any time. So how am I going to use the plastic bag to defend myself? Do I need to use the plastic bag? If there's ballast in the bag, I'll just smack the shit out of you. It'll rip the bag, but that's fine, whatever. But then I'll have this bag. So, it comes down to things like, how am I carrying this bag? Do I have it on my wrist? Do I have it on my hand? All those things. And then, part of preparedness. Do you dress the way you want to fight? Do you practice? If you wear mandals, do you practice your kicks and mandals? Or do you practice taking your mandals off? I mean, if that's what you wear, go for it, dude. But then, do you practice actually doing that? Do you wear jeans that are so tight you can't move in them, that you can't breathe? If you do, then do you know how to fight with that? Because that's a limitation. And anyway, so you kind of get the point. There are ways to do this, and there are ways to sort of tweak your preparedness and versus unprepared training, and to increase your level of preparedness is the ultimate goal, because even in unprepared situations, you want to increase your ability to be prepared. So, we practice from a mostly physical neutral position. It's still not emotionally neutral. Like, we have a sense that something's going to happen, we're engaged, but it's physically neutral. That's a component for us of, okay, we're unprepared, more or less. But, we're not in a fighting stance every time we start. Most of the time we're just standing there. We can even be hands down, but generally speaking, if somebody's in proximity and you sense there's going to be any kind of conflict, you should have your hands engaged somehow in front of you to be able to kind of keep things fluid and moving. So that's one thing we do. And then we practice recovery. Okay, you've been hit, that's cool, find a set point, get recovered. Start finding a place to start from again, because it's going to happen. It's not a question if, it's when, and then what are you going to do about it? So prepared fighting and unprepared fighting. What is your system teaching you? Where are you locked in? Are you locked in the prepared fighting or the unprepared fighting? Are you only looking at one or the other? If you're only looking at prepared fighting, you just might be chasing a rainbow.